Aaron, on the spot, give me one reason, one good reason, if you're a lawmaker, why Oregonians could not collect rainwater.
Oh, the ecology or whatever, you know? Uh, Rain.
What about it?
You mess with the climate. If one person can do it, then everybody can do it, and then, what? I feel like this should be like self-evident.
Okay. But like, how many people actually would do it, and would it actually affect? Like, one out of every like
I
probably 100 people is actually going to do it.
Right. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a rainfall expert or a water collection expert. I don't know how like at what point, you know, you're collecting water changes things. So, I don't know. I guess at one point, that kind of thing would have bothered me. Like, why is the government going to tell me what to do about, rainwater falling on my land? But I just don't care anymore because I, lost that spark. Some call life or a soul.
It's actually funny if that change has happened. It's happened in kind of like the years of radio silence between us because that's kind of the Aaron I still remember. Like a very don't tread on me, but not in like the cringy deep south way. More in the like just let
Just
me
the
live my life way.
fundamentals. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, in a way, nothing has changed. I think I've always been this way of, lacking a spark, but also, yeah, having that, like, yeah, don't tread on me. I think that, the government can suck a dick, yada yada.
Yeah,
Much in the
that's
theme.
fair.
Well, never mind. I won't talk about the movie yet.
We'll get to that. Yeah. What is new with you guys?
Well, you guys did some traveling, didn't you?
Or yeah, Nate did.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. Anna and I were gone for a few weeks visiting her friends and family. So
Uh,
Norway, Germany, and a few things in between.
I bet you can't collect rainwater there.
In Germany, you can.
In Norway, it's probably snow.
Yes, definitely.
Nice.
And it was also weird. Like we were there in May, but even in May, like it didn't get dark until like midnight. We were kind of in the south of Norway. We weren't in the Arctic Circle, but like even in the south and even just in May, it was like actually dark by midnight and started to get light at like 4. It was crazy.
Trippy.
Yeah, that's. Well, you know
And then
what's
of
crazy?
course the opposite is worse, right? When you're in the winter
Yeah.
and it's like getting light at like 10:30 in the morning.
Moving from Oregon down to Nevada, though, I know it's not like a huge, it's only like, I don't know, it's only like 500 or 600 miles. But I have noticed that even that little bit of difference in like latitude change is enough that I notice that the days are not getting as long where we're at as they were like living in Western Oregon. And it's not a huge dramatic change where it's like changing it by hours, but it is
You
still like I'm
actually
so
notice
used.
it? That's crazy.
Well, because look, I mean, the longest day of the year is in 2 days. So at this point, like I'm
Mhm.
used to the days being pretty long, like a lot of daylight. And in Reno, it's
You're
noticeably
pretty
less.
invested in
Like,
this.
yeah, it's still, I mean, it's not like it's like, oh, it's a 2 hour shorter, like daylight,
Right.
allotment, but like it still is enough of a change that I've noticed it and it's a little odd. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. I was like, I didn't think moving that small of a distance would be enough to notice it, but it is.
I wouldn't notice it. Aaron, what's up with you?
And not much, really. Uh, Went on a little vacation last week
Oh yeah,
ish.
where was that to? I saw your
We
picture
went
on
to
Instagram.
northern Idaho, Silverwood.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
sure you guys have heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, Coeur d'Alene area.
Yeah.
It's
Super
really
pretty
beautiful.
area. Yeah. The 8 hour drive, not that great. And the last day that we were at the Airbnb, the fire alarm like system started going off at 2 a.m. and would not shut off. And then my mom and her husband called the fire department. They came by. They weren't able to shut it off. It just went off by itself. And then as everybody's like trying to go back to bed, like 2:40ish, uh, it starts going off again. And then why is it doing that? Okay. Um, yeah, so we ended up having to, leave then. I don't know if I'm
That's
So you
bumping
just
into
left at
cords.
3 in the morning.
Yeah, well, we got ready to go. We had to like pack up everything. We were intending to leave like right at the last minute,
Hmm.
11
that's
a.m.
a
kind of thing.
that's a really unfortunate way to end a vacation.
Yeah, and unfortunate way to start a 8-hour drive. I went to bed
Also,
around like almost midnight, so I got like 3 hours of sleep, and then had to drive 8 hours. Super fun. I
Maybe
feel like I'm
it's like
still recovering.
maybe it's like the awful first world perspective, but like my first thought in that scenario, my first thought jumps to like, well, did you get any money back?
I mean, I didn't spend a dime on the place. I'm hoping that, yeah, Sean, my mom's husband, gets his money back.
Is that not a
hopefully.
weird perspective to have though? Where like it has nothing to do with money. You still were inconvenienced. Getting money doesn't make it any better, but for some reason
Oh,
that
it
just seems
kind of
like the
does.
right
What do you?
thing.
Yeah, no. Well, so it's a matter of principle, of course, but also, like, yeah, money would be nice. Like, it would
Well,
help a
because
little bit.
you paid for a certain experience and you didn't get the experience you paid for. Like you paid for
Yeah.
X number of days of living in this house under, certain circumstances, and if like you had to leave early because there was a fire alarm going off, like you didn't actually get everything you paid for. So like I get it. But yeah, it doesn't undo the inconvenience or the problem. It's just like
I
I
think
don't
we
know.
deserve a full refund and a letter of apology.
And a voucher
A
for
very
somewhere else.
sincere.
And a
Yes.
voucher? A full refund and a voucher?
Yes.
Oh,
It was
jeez.
pretty
Really
annoying,
make it
and those alarms were loud. My sister and my brother both got like video of it because they are young and use like Snapchat and TikTok and all that kind of shit. Um, and like we got back here, and one of them like played it just as a gag, and like I felt like a PTSD. Like it was
It's like an
so
alarm.
loud, constant. Yeah, it was bad. The house was really nice though. The nicest house I've ever stayed at.
That's
Dude,
cool.
the fact that you called the fire department and they couldn't solve your problem, like I got a lot of follow-up questions for the local fire department. They're like, we just put out fires. We don't deal with fire alarms.
Yeah,
Quick,
I
just
have no
questions.
idea how all that goes. But what was funny is so this is like a cabin-esque house on the top of a hill, and you have to pass through some like private, property and stuff, a long gravel road to get there. And their next door neighbor has like a few acres, and there's like project cars everywhere, just dilapidated stuff. And there's a sign that they have like uh, next to the entrance to their house that says like "Drive slow. We do not call the cops.
Yeah, one of those
Have
people.
respect." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I vibe with, but what's funny about that is we called the cops, and they had to drive past their house to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fun.
I just love the idea of like firefighters showing up and they're like, we only know how to do one thing.
We
They
put
start
out
like
fires. There's
blasting the
no
fire,
fire,
so
right?
it's just water.
They just
They
show
start an
up with like
electrical
the
fire.
hose and they're like, "This is the only thing we know how to do. We have water. You can douse your electronics
make
in
wet.
water and see what happens."
Where make wet.
One thing that was sketch though is I had a little weed pen uh, on my bed, and I totally forgot about it. And Idaho, it's still illegal, so I was
Oh,
shitting
I didn't
bricks in
know
the
that.
car while the cops and the firefighters were scouring the place.
I'm always surprised when I hear another state like that it's still illegal. Like it's still illegal in West Virginia. Like it always just
That's
surprises
so
me
yeah,
that
that's
there's
weird.
still states. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
Uh,
I'm so used to it just being ubiquitous at this point, or feeling ubiquitous, even if it's not. I guess living in the Oregon and like, California and all that, it's like it's just been there for so long that you forget that, like, yeah, technically
Well,
not
I
everywhere.
think I think it's also like the more conservative states are the ones that are like more that are slower to adapt it to.
which is so
Like
Probably
I
weird
think
because those are typically the ones that are like,
do whatever you
small
want.
government, don't tell me what to do. Yeah, let me collect my
right.
rainwater. God damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but don't you dare spoke the devil's lettuce.
Karina, what have you been watching?
I watched a couple of movies recently. I watched The Dead Don't Die, which was kind of a fun, campy, quirky zombie movie. Um,
Not enough of
and
those.
what?
I said not enough of those. Oh, yo, I've seen this. Wow. Okay. I
So
totally forgot about this.
I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a cute movie. And then I watched. It's actually one that I added to the list for us to talk about. If at some point I
Yeah.
think it'd be a good one. It's called "It's What's Inside," and it's that one was interesting. I feel like there's some good discussion waiting to happen between the three of us if we ever watch that one. It's on Netflix, so I really enjoyed it.
It's it's what's inside.
Is it like a horror movie? Oh yeah,
Sounds like
yeah,
it.
that's one of the
Uh,
genre tags.
I feel like horror is kind of a stretch. It's not really horror. Unless you just want to maybe like psychological horror to a small extent.
I mean,
But
the Substance also to me wasn't horror, but
it got a horror
like,
tag, yeah.
yeah, if you want to like try to place it in some sort of box, I feel like that's the closest thing you could do. Maybe art
Yeah.
piece. I don't know.
I mean, I would say psychological thriller and just like I
For
guess
the
like
Substance?
yeah, for the substance.
Yeah.
Well, but it's also body
I
horror.
don't know.
I think it
Yeah,
falls
body horror for
pretty.
sure. Yeah.
I would say
Yeah,
it
yeah,
falls
okay.
pretty
Body
squarely
horror
into
and then
that.
just like a thriller.
Yeah.
I would say those two. Yeah.
So I would say that, yeah, like the probably It's What's Inside is more of like a psychological thriller slash like, I don't know. It's almost just kind of like, oh, here's a weird situation and then let's see how people respond to it. Like, how do people cope? It's like,
That's kind of what I mean, I haven't seen this, so I don't know, but that's kind of what Shallow Grave was like.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, it was kind of like you have an unusual set of circumstances with like normal people, and how do they
Yeah,
handle like
exactly.
the pressure or the. So I would say that this one totally different set of circumstances in the film, but like it is very much the same thing of like people end up in an unusual set of circumstances, and they're just normal people, and it's like how do you cope with this? Like how do you decide who's calling the shots on things and what happens next? And you have,
Yeah.
especially when you have people that are like in strong opposition to each other about what needs to happen next. So it was really good. I enjoyed it. I went in with like no expectations. It was just something that popped up as a recommended thing on Netflix. So I watched it and I was like, actually, that was like really good. So I won't talk about it like as far as like the plot goes because I think it's something that we would have a lot to discuss if we watched it for the podcast. So anyway, it was good though. So I would highly recommend that both of you watch it at some point, and I think it'd be worth doing an episode on.
You said you went in with no expectations. That's usually what I try and do with like every movie, but can you guys think of something where you would like you feel like if somebody was going to watch it, you would want to preface them watching the film with some kind of information? Because like I'm typically the kind of person where I'm like, I don't want to know anything. I just want to sit down and just watch the movie and experience everything like in the moment and not have any foreknowledge. But like, are there any movies where you wouldn't recommend somebody to do that?
I think it depends on the person and the movie that I'm recommending. Like if I was recommending The Substance to my mom, I would have to try to butter it up as, some sort of feminist, thought-provoking piece. You know what I mean? So it would really depend on the circumstances.
Huh.
Yeah, I could
Because you
see
think she
that.
wouldn't want to watch it otherwise?
Oh, definitely not. Would your mom want to?
No, no. But I don't lump all moms in together. So
Right.
There might be situations where, like, if you know that something's a good movie, but it's really outside of someone else's, like what they normally watch, like what their normal taste in films is. So if it was something where you're like, no, this is a really good movie, and I think if you give it a chance and actually sit down and watch it, you'll like it. But I think maybe in some of those situations, you would feel like you needed to preface it to tell somebody, like, no, don't give up on it because of this thing that I know is like normally something that would make you walk away from a movie. So that is, again, still pretty situational, but I could see something like that being where you would want to have that information given to somebody ahead of time.
yeah,
Well, yeah. Were you asking for like specific examples or?
kind of. But like,
Uh,
you gave the substance as a specific example. So
yeah.
Also, like anytime it's something that's related to like some kind of existing property, then obviously you're going to have, you know, even if you don't mean to go in with expectations of any kind, like you're going to, either because it's a character you're familiar with, or
yeah, I guess so. But
like maybe not expectations in a really specific way, but like, I mean, if you went to go see a Batman movie or a Spider-Man movie, even if it's a new take on the character,
The Joker too.
totally, yeah, or
Didn't
you know,
watch
something.
it.
Me neither, but I've heard bad things.
oh
Yeah,
boy,
real bad. See, like that's a
I mean, that's
sequel,
just
so I think even more so there's expectations. But I mean that, like,
yeah,
you know, if they decide to like be like, hey, we're having a new person play Spider-Man now, and it's going to be disconnected entirely from anything that Marvel's been doing, you would still have expectations going into a Spider-Man movie because like it's a character you are familiar with and it's a world you're familiar with. So even if it's an entirely fresh take on it, I don't think you could go in without expectations unless you're
I think that
really,
just
really good
applies
at
to
compartmentalizing.
all movies, really. In a way, like if you
Maybe.
just go back for like when I watched this movie, I was not expecting it to be a musical. You know what I mean? Like, but I try to do the same thing where I don't have expectations, and typically when I recommend movies to people, I want them to also not have expectations because that's part of the fun of it, the thrill, the twist, the surprise.
I mean, like, I don't think any director makes a movie where he's like, this will be best experienced if people have seen the trailers first, right? Like, that's not the mindset you have while you're making a film.
Damn, now I kind of want to watch the trailers for Enemy.
Actually, that's something I'll do a lot because I never watch trailers. But like, if there's a movie I really like, a lot of times I'll go back and watch the trailer afterwards and be like, what would my thoughts be going into this if I did watch the trailer first? And
Yeah,
usually I'm like,
sometimes,
oh wow, I'm really glad I didn't watch the trailer before I watched the movie
yeah,
because
because the
I'm really
marketing
glad
team
that
just
yeah,
doesn't
like,
do a
it's
good
like I'm
job.
really glad I experienced this scene or that moment or whatever like in the moment instead of knowing it was coming. So, yeah.
Yeah. That being said, I kind of wish I
Uh
didn't like look up the movie at all, uh, which I mean I had to do to see where to stream it. Uh, but just to know, like, to not to go into the movie without any sort of a preface on what it was about.
um I didn't watch much because we were traveling, but that being said, because we were traveling, I had like the first two seasons of Andor downloaded because I heard good stuff about it. I haven't really touched anything Star Wars that's been made in like the past 5 or 6 years, but I heard good stuff about it, so I decided to try it. Um, and it's not bad. It's not bad. Diego Luna's pretty awesome. He's a good actor. He's got that nice. I don't actually know what his ethnicity is, but we're just gonna go with Spanish and or just general Hispanic suave, which is pretty
Latinx.
incredible.
Yeah,
Latinx.
not Latinx.
Latinx. You got that Latinx suave. Him and Pedro Pascal. Um, but yeah, it's fine. It doesn't feel very Star Warsy, which I think is some of the appeal in it. Like, there's no lightsabers farting around or like little green dudes doing backflips. Like it's kind of removed from Star Wars. It's like obviously still in the universe, and there's a few crossover characters, but like in general, it feels pretty original, and so I kind of enjoyed it. And it's kind of more like the seedy underbelly of like people like on both sides doing dirty things just to get the
Like
edge
Rogue
up on
One.
the other side. I mean, yeah, because it's the
Well, it's
preface
the
to Rogue
prequel,
One,
yeah.
so yeah. So it's exactly like that, but it's more in depth, right? And there's a lot of politics in it too. Not as deep as something like Dune or Game of Thrones, but like it's there and it's pretty decent. So yeah.
I want to check it out,
Uh,
but I need to find like a good way to pirate it, because Disney's not going to see a dime from me.
they don't see a dime from me. I'm mooching off somebody else. So yeah, Disney doesn't crack down on that. I think maybe because other streaming services do, that Disney's like, we're gonna take the not the high road, I guess, the low road, and just like let people password share and not crack down on it. Just, I'm not really sure why, but
I don't know how they are with the password sharing thing, like in general, but I think maybe they have different levels you can pay for, which allow you to have multiple logins in different places.
maybe
Unlike
yeah.
Netflix, which doesn't want you to do that. I think Disney allows it because we don't pay for it. We are on a family member's, but I believe he pays to have it be where he can share it with people. I think there's a lower tier, if I remember correctly, where it would just be like one place or one user or something. So they definitely have a different setup, which I think probably works in their favor because people used to love that about Netflix, that you could just have one and share it with like 10 people and,
Yeah.
you know.
How do they combat password sharing? Because like I'm using like 3 different streaming services that are from other people. One from Portland.
It's like location based for the most part. So like what, because I was using Karina's, well, I guess it's not hers, but like I was using their Netflix for a while, and for some reason it was working for a while, and then one day it was just like, looks like you're in a different location than where you usually watch Netflix. And then it was like you can get a code to watch like temporarily if you're traveling or something like that. But it like it
Okay.
knew that I was watching from a location that was not the location where it was usually being watched. So
Yeah. Which it will still let you move it around. The problem is you can't have multiple people using that account at once, even though there's multiple users. It's like
Yeah.
you have to be on one of the location. You have to be at the location that's like set as the home one. And then if you are, so like we have to coordinate, like we're all using it, but it's like you couldn't have multiple households using it at once because it wants, if you're not like the one that's set as home, it wants you to like get a code to log in, and treats it like a temporary location, but then it prevents other people from using it at the same time. So
apart from that, not something I watched, but something I read because we were talking about the TV show. I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, but somehow Three Body Problem got brought up, and I was like, yeah, the show was pretty good, and Aaron was like, shit, you should read the books. So I did.
All of them?
I'm in the middle of the third one right now. So,
Nice.
but it is on a different level. Like
I was gonna say, yeah, like the first book and this, like the rest do not even. Yeah.
I'll still defend the show for being a decent show, and like good luck adapting this, which
Yeah.
they're not doing a terrible job. But
The first book is a lot easier to adapt though than the rest, I would think.
the second book, holy crap, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. But like, it is mind-bendingly good, and it makes you feel, even though it's all fiction, like all of the theories are very like founded in feasibility, and it makes you feel really, really small.
I was
and
gonna say, yeah, when you
insignificant.
look up like at the night sky after reading those books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll have
But
to
there's
read them.
They're
it's
good.
But the dark forest, because you were talking about the dark forest theory, and I think
Yeah.
even after your explanation, I think you
Which
were
was
like reading it
terrible.
or something. Well, I still didn't really understand it, and even like after reading the book, I have a grasp on it, but like to explain it would probably take a solid few minutes of like very like succinct explanation, which I just can't do properly. But
Oh, we know.
yeah, it's very cool. So, Karina, highly recommend reading it.
Okay, I will.
It's very good.
Needs. I need it. Yeah, I mean, I need another good sci-fi thing to read now that I read the first 2 Hyperion books. So
This is a good like adjacent. I feel
Okay.
like obviously they're not similar, but as far as like being different sci-fi, I feel like this is really good.
Speaking
Okay.
of password sharing, if anybody wants my Audible, I have like 80 books on there. Kind of similar
There you go.
to.
no,
I don't
Thanks,
know if you guys
appreciate
are
it.
into audiobooks or not, but
Not as much, but it just depends on the situation. If I'm working a job where I can like kind of turn my brain off, then I need podcasts, but like I can only do podcasts for so long, so it's nice to have books too.
yeah. I haven't been watching anything that I can think of. I watched like bits and pieces of Deadpool versus Wolverine.
Ooh, what'd you think?
I mean, there's bits and pieces. I liked. I can't remember what I was expecting the movie to be. Uh, and even though I try not to have expectations, it just kind of happens sometimes. But I was not expecting like the post-apocalypse. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah,
No.
Okay, well, never mind.
I've seen it,
No, you can
but
say whatever
yeah.
you want. I'm not really planning on watching it.
Okay, well, it takes place in like a post-apocalyptic world, which I was not expecting.
Well, parts of it do.
Yeah, again, I only saw bits and pieces, so
It's like all the bits and pieces I saw.
yeah.
It was a fun movie. It was like, I mean, as you, I would assume you would expect, it was heavy on the fan service. But it wasn't like bad though. I didn't think it was entertaining. I don't know that it has a whole lot of rewatchability, but like as a one time watch, it was fun. You know, getting to finally see the two of those characters like be in a movie together and kind of play off of each other was entertaining. And I think that I mean, it was not real plot heavy. Like there wasn't a lot to digest there, but I thought what they did with it was decent. So like, I think it's probably worth it to watch it once, especially since you like Wolverine.
Yeah, I'm worried that like I don't want to watch it because I like Wolverine. It's like the last time I saw him on screen was Logan, I think. And so it's like,
So,
do I
so,
really want to come back to the screen to see this?
so it's a different Wolverine. It isn't
No, it's
the
not. It's Hugh Jackman.
No,
From a
no. I
different
mean,
universe.
different timeline, different universe. It's not Logan. It's not the Logan that died in Logan. It's a different iteration of Wolverine. But what I was going to say is like, I think though that like, I know the timeline stuff is kind of annoying, but I will say that like, I think that actually they did a good job of giving him like real, like he has actual internal like struggle stuff that he's dealing with like in his relation to like the X-Men and some of that stuff in his, you know, in the timeline that he's from, where like he feels like he's let people down and that he's like, there's like actual internal, he's not just there to be like, oh, I'm just here to fight. Like he has other stuff going on. Like he has a backstory that they've created for him that doesn't get in the way of any of the stuff that happened with Logan. So like they're not retconning any of that. He's a different version. It's a different timeline of him, but he's I think it's well done. Like it isn't, I don't think it ruins any of the stuff that happened with like any of the X-Men films or the, you know, like with Logan, if you know, if you don't want it to taint that. So
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I'll put it on the back burner, and if it's ever like an option and there isn't a better one, I don't know. I just don't see myself seeking it out, you know? Like I don't feel drawn to it. So,
yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, anyways, I'm Nate,
I'm Karina.
I'm Aaron.
and this podcast is limited to everything. All right. So, today we are discussing Denis Villeneuve's 2013 film, Enemy. Not his other 2013 film, Prisoners, although that would also be a good one to discuss at some point if you guys haven't seen it. Have you guys seen Prisoners?
Nope.
It's very good. Speaking of Hugh Jackman, it's Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. So, and also Paul Dano and who's the what's his name? Who's the guy that plays Peter de Vries in Dune?
Oh, I can totally visualize the actor's face, but
He has
I
a
don't.
very Anyways, has a very good cast.
That's okay.
Uh,
Solid.
but
If
this
we do another Jake Gyllenhaal movie, we might as well call this like the Jake Gyllenhaal fan club
Fan.
cast.
Yeah.
this is our third Jake Gyllenhaal, third, maybe even more.
Third?
Is it?
We did Velvet Buzzsaw, Nightcrawler,
Oh
and
yeah,
now.
Nightcrawler.
Oh, yeah,
This is
okay.
our third. This is three. Yeah,
Dang.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Maybe he's in everything.
But honestly, I'd be down if we just turned this into the Gyllenhaal podcast. That would also be fine because he takes good roles, you know.
He definitely takes
Anyways.
interesting roles. Yeah.
He does. He does. Anyway, so yes, this is starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Melanie Laurent, Sarah Gadon, and basically, I don't want to say no one else, but like, there's not many other.
That's really
characters.
it.
He was
I mean,
the only
anybody
person I
else is
recognized.
like, well, anybody else in it is only in it for like a minute,
2 minutes tops.
2 minutes tops, and they have one or two lines of dialogue, and they're completely just side characters. Like they're not, they're not impacting the plot line at all. So
All right. Well, speaking of plotline, I'll go over it briefly, and then we will. I don't know what direction we're gonna go from there, but
well, let's see what your synopsis is, and then we can see if that sparks anything.
Okay. So basically, you have a normal dude living a normal life. He's like a college professor, and he watches this film kind of on, like somebody recommends it to him kind of on a whim. He watches this film, sees somebody in the film that looks identical to him, or, you know, looks a lot like him. And he's like, that's weird. And so he like starts researching this guy, figures out who he is, and starts low-key stalking him. And then, like, he calls his house and speaks to his wife, stuff like that. And then eventually they arrange a meeting, and they meet each other face to face. And they're like, okay, this is weird. Like, we actually look identical. Obviously, they're both played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Even to the point where they have the same scar, which is kind of the first point in the movie where you're like, what is going on, right? This isn't just your doppelganger. And so his doppelganger, I'm just going to call him that, the actor, his doppelganger starts to get kind of paranoid because he knows that he talked to his wife. And so he confronts him and he's like, you slept with my wife, didn't you? And the main character is like,
Adam.
The what? You're crazy. But
Yeah,
the guy's
you're
like, I know you did, and this is what's going to happen to get even. I get to take your girlfriend out on a nice romantic evening kind of a thing. And obviously the main character is kind of a coward, and so he just lets him do it. And then while that's happening, he goes back to the actor's house where his wife is and spends the evening with her. And the actor and the girlfriend die in a car crash, and the main character stays with the wife of the actor, and then she turns into a spider.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Have you guys ever seen like GIFs of, or like memes from this movie? Particularly
No,
the spider
actually.
bit. I've seen this scene like a bunch of times. I don't know what my algorithm's on, but yeah. So I've always wondered like, what is this movie where Jake Gyllenhaal walks around a corner and there's a giant spider that, you know, cowers in the corner.
It's a creepy moment because
Yeah, and
obviously
I
you
was
don't know
not
it's coming, right?
expecting it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it happened,
Well,
I was like,
it's this thing where like he's talking to her, right? It's this classic thing where like the other character is off screen, you can't see him, and the main actor is like talking to them, and then they stop responding, and there's silence, and you're like, Ellen, right? And then he goes around the corner, and I don't know what I'm expecting because there's like 2 minutes left in the movie, right? I'm like, did she just like die, right? Or like what? You know, is she not? She doesn't exist.
Same,
Like, what
yeah.
is it? And she's just a spider, right? Obviously, there's a reason for that. So, like, this movie is
Well, that's
Like-
not the first instance of a spider symbolism
okay.
or whatever.
Yeah, which
like
the
this
Here's
is
what I'm gonna say.
Ugh.
Here's what I'm gonna say. Okay, I didn't do any research. I didn't like watch any explain videos or like fan theories or anything like that because I didn't want to have my perspective tainted. I feel like I have a very strong and solid opinion about what is going on in this movie, so I want to hear what you guys are thinking. and see if it aligns with what I'm
Are
thinking.
you talking specifically about the spiders, or you mean the overall, like, what's going on with the two guys looking the same?
Just what is the point of the movie? What's
Okay,
going on
well,
in the
Karina,
movie?
have you watched any sort of explained videos?
No.
No?
No. Did
Did you,
you?
Aaron?
I will. Okay, so hear me out. Um, I watched the movie this morning. Um, I already felt like just I've I've been drained recently. I've been playing a lot of RimWorld, and that's broken my brain. It was not prepared to actually do this and have this commitment, which is a spoiler kind of. Um, and then I also watched it on Amazon, and they do like a little thing afterwards where the director and the uh, star of the movie um, come on and then talk about the movie. So I got a little
Hmm.
bit of that, and then like I just had to know more after hearing what
Okay.
they had to say
Okay.
about it. So I watched a few. All of them
So
had different theories, though. Kind of. They were all kind of adjacent to each other, but there was different. Yeah,
well, there has to be, I think, because there's a lot of stuff that could be
it's
interpreted different
open-ended.
ways. But
Yeah.
Karina, why don't you, I don't know, give any of your thoughts first, and then I'll tell you what I think, and then Aaron can confirm
Correct you
or
guys.
correct us, right?
Okay.
Unless you don't have some kind of like deep thought, unless you're just gonna have to like pull it out of nowhere. Like if you didn't
I
have
mean,
that.
I was just gonna say that, like, honestly, I felt like I had to just kind of like sit and like write notes after I finished, because I felt like when the movie just ended, I was like, I have so many questions and like no answers. So I was trying to, like, the biggest thing I was trying to figure out, I was like, are they the same person? Or is this like a shared consciousness thing, or like what's going on? Because I was like, to me, there seemed like there was like, I'd remember something about the movie and I'd be like, oh yeah, there was this thing, where I'm like, they must be the same person. But then there are enough other things where they don't seem like they align. And where I was like, I'm genuinely not sure, like, if this is somebody leading a double life and he's just really good at keeping the two sides of his life apart, or if he has like dissociative identity disorder, or if there's like a weird like sci-fi element to it, and this is actually just like two people that have like weirdly kind of living the same life, or like kind of similar. I don't know if you want me to like mention any of those things, but like that was kind of where my brain went initially, where I was just like, I just was trying to like write down the things for me that were like, in what ways could this be like this is the same person living a double life, and what evidence is there that maybe that's not what's happening. And then as far as like the spider stuff goes, I mean, there's clear, like, I think that there's like some kind of symbolism for, you start with the actor dude going to some weird like sex thing that involves
It's a great
spider.
opening scene for a movie that has like really nothing else like that in the rest of the movie.
Okay, it did make me laugh. I was like, way to go, Nate, picking another movie that's just opening
I was
with
gonna say, yeah. I thought the same
like
thing.
very
Oh, excuse me. There was plenty of graphic nudity in the substance. Okay.
No, I know, I'm just kidding. But I think that there's like, I don't know if I have like I don't have a fleshed out theory, but to me it was like there's definitely like there's multiple instances where there are spider things, and it's all related to the actor side of it, and it's clearly indicative of like something dark going on. Like there's secrets he's keeping from his wife. He's definitely involved in things outside of like what people know him for on the surface. And I don't have a theory about like what that is or what it means, or if it is directly connected to like the professor side of this story or not. But I think it's definitely like, to me, it was like, okay, like this is symbolic, at least in some form, of there being dark parts to him that are creepy or like uncomfortable. Like, I think spider imagery especially is like, I don't like spiders. Spiders make me very uncomfortable. Like, I think they do for a lot of people. I was really glad she didn't step on that spider on screen, because I was like, if I have to watch that, I'm gonna be so grossed out. Like, I was imagining what the sound was gonna be like, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this. So I was so glad it cut. So I don't know. Go ahead, Nate, because I don't have any fleshed out theories. Like I have lots of
Okay.
thoughts, but they're not well connected.
So my first, like, I was about halfway through the movie and I kind of paused it and I was like, I feel like a lot of times I don't think enough about, because I was already starting to think like, oh, I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna have to look up some explain videos, and I was like, I feel like I don't think enough like on my own about like what do I think about this, trying to actually figure out what's going on. And so I started like trying to put the pieces together, and I came to the conclusion that like they're definitely the same person. At least halfway through the film, I was like, they're definitely the same person for two reasons. One is the scar. Like that's just like there's no other explanation, right? They have to be the same person. But also, so the actor is the one who was like doing the sex cult stuff, right, with the spider. But the other character, the main character, I guess, is the one who he like wakes up. He has dreams about spiders and about the sex cult a couple times and wakes up from those dreams. So I was like, they have to be the same person, right? And it can't just be like that. They're kind of like weirdly connected because they also look identical. So either you're looking at the same person living in like two different mirror universes, but then, or it's just like the exact same person, right? And by the end of the film, especially with the very last scene, which I think is really like not just the last scene, like the last shot of the spider, him seeing the spider, I think is really solidified my opinion, which is that I think it's a story about one man who is stuck in a cycle of like addiction. And for him, it's a sex cult. But like, I think you could take the themes of this movie and you could apply it to alcoholism or gambling or whatever. But like, obviously, like the spiders are representative of that darkness and that addiction. And so like, that's why they're at the cult, because they're representative of it there. But like, I think it's about him fighting to get out of it. And the reason I realized this was because like in the last scene, the other person has died. The evil person, like the evil version of himself has finally died, right? He died in the car crash. He finally killed it. He got over his addiction. And then he's standing in his room with the other guy's clothes on, and he's like, oh, what's this? Finds the
He
key in
opens
his
the key.
pocket to the sex cult, and it starts again. And he's like, and this is the moment he looks at the key and he's like, hey, Ellen, I think I need to go out tonight, right? And then just like that, this beautiful life that he got back with his wife, and they're going to have a kid, and everything's good and right, and it's back to normal. Once he makes that decision to go back in, he just lost it. And that's why she turns into like this spider, because it's like, boom, you're right back in to that cycle. You're back into the downward spiral, right? That doesn't explain everything, right? And I think like there's a lot of like, okay, what about all the stuff about like him and his life as a like college professor? I don't know. I don't necessarily have like explanations for all of that, but like that's what I came away with, especially with that last scene. So
Okay, so with that last scene where he, opens the envelope and it's got the key inside of it, and he immediately reverts back to his old ways. I don't know if you remember, but when he's a professor talking about, I think it's Hegel.
yeah,
Yeah, I wrote down
Yeah,
that quote.
you want to say it? Because I don't remember it like word for word.
He said that every great calamity that happens in history happens twice. The first time it's a tragedy, the second time it's a farce.
Yeah,
hmm,
so he, you could say that the calamity in this case was him cheating on his wife way before, and all the other, uh, adulterous
stuff.
behavior. Yeah. Um, and then the farce is him, he finally defeats his addiction and
He's,
then immediately, throws it all away.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, and therefore his, happy little life that he secured himself is now a farce. He never killed that version of himself, or maybe he did.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, they are the same person. And this is like confirmed by Denny. Um, they're the same person. Um, he's having a war with his subconscious, and the spider, as far as I know, represents femininity and commitment.
Hmm.
hmm.
So I really wish that I had watched this movie like a few days ago and took some notes because like a part of me wishes that I was the kind of person that would just do that with every movie that we watch, so that I can bring a lot to the table. But with this one in particular, I feel like even if we weren't doing a podcast about it, I would want to like really dissect it, and I feel like all of us, especially once I tell you all the little plot details, we could eventually get to the uh, meaning and all the metaphors behind the movie if just given enough time and thought. Um, but I didn't do that. I procrastinated and watched it today. So let's see. So they're the same person. Drawing a blank. Um,
You said the spiders represent femininity. Do you know like what were the reasons given for that being the explanation for that? Or do you have any thoughts about like cuz at least from like my interpretation of the film, it definitely seems like well, it represents his
Issues.
darkness, his addiction, which in his case is sex, I guess, like being a sex addict or whatever, right?
right. So I am going to be pulling like bits and pieces from multiple. Uh, I watched three explained videos this morning. In the very beginning of the film, when she's squishing the spider and all the dudes, including him, are just enamored with the sight, you could say
Mm,
that that is him watching, yeah, like the squashing of his commitment and his attachment to femininity. Um, Also, as he's the professor, he talks about dictatorships and how
yeah.
they, you know, they work.
There's
The
methods
one
of
thing that they all
control.
have in common, exactly. There's also a lot of imagery of webs. At some point, it
Hmm.
shows like the power lines of Toronto, and it looks like a web when the car
The
crash
window
happens.
after the
Yeah.
car crash,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, the spiders represent a fear of him being controlled. He doesn't like commitment, or he thinks he doesn't. I think that the spiders are really open ended, and it could, because yeah, to me, I was taking a shower and listening to one of the explained videos, and I also thought of how it could really apply to any addiction. I feel like there's more I could say. I'm just gonna need more conversation. I'll remember bits and
Sure,
pieces
sure.
about what I've seen. Yeah,
I will say something that was odd to me. Like, I agree. I think by the end of it, and by the time I had written down notes, I was like, I do think these are the same person. But I feel like there's. I wonder what the movie, if it's maybe just to be disorienting or if there's more to it. Because I feel like, oh, there's a lot of things where it's why. Why didn't the girlfriend of the why didn't she ever notice like the ring thing until the very end? When she freaks out about like, oh, he has a mark from wearing a wedding ring on his finger. And
I
it's
don't think
like,
she's real.
I don't know if she's real or not.
Well,
Like,
I think like
well, because that's what I'm
so
saying
it's
is
like
like,
so
I don't know, because that's my other thing is like, is he an actor? Is he a teacher? I don't know what his real job is. I don't know which one he actually does because his wife goes to the school and talks to a guy. And is he like faking it? Is he pretending to be somebody else when he has that conversation with his wife? Does she not go at all because she tells him back at the house that she went and talked to the guy? Like, how much
how
of this
much
is.
how much is also just happening in his head too
Well,
because like
I know. That's what I'm
obviously
saying. It's like, I'm not sure.
when he meets himself
Clearly,
in a
yeah.
hotel, that's not actually he's not actually right. So like, there's certain portions of this film that aren't actually happening.
that being said, I do think that certain scenes take place from different people's perspectives. Like when she goes to the college, I think that's pretty much her. Like that's an objective reality, what she's experiencing. Um,
So
and you might
does that
notice
mean he
that,
actually is a teacher then?
yes, I think that's what the case
I
is.
think,
Is that
I think
he's
so.
actually a teacher. He's got this weird little fantasy where he also wants to be a actor, and that's why his mom, uh, in the very beginning of the film, is talking about how like, oh, you have this crummy apartment, and then later on, she talks about how he's got this nice apartment. Um, and then she also mentions that he should quit, his silly little acting gig. And then also mentions that he loves strawberries,
Blueberries, yeah.
or
Blueberries,
blueberries. Yeah,
yeah.
Well, also that's something I was thinking. Like, I was like, okay, this guy's entire filmography is 3 roles as like almost not uncredited, but basically uncredited extra, and he's got
Yeah.
a pretty nice apartment. I was like, that doesn't quite track,
doesn't add up. Yeah,
right?
Right. So yeah, I think the teacher is the professor is his actual job. Especially because then in that end scene where he's like at the actor's apartment spending the night with the wife, she asks him how was school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Well, no,
and
okay,
she
so
doesn't
but when she said, so still at that point, I hadn't realized that like it was the exact same person. And so when she said that, I was like, oh, okay, so she just realizes that it's
That's the other one.
the other guy, not her
Yeah.
husband. But then
That's
she
where I
also
was at,
says,
too.
I want you to stay, which could be interpreted as she wants the teacher instead of her actual husband. But I think what it actually means is he finally overcame his addiction and he's back to being his real good self that's there. And
yeah,
she's like,
probably
I
who
want
she
this
fell in
version
love
of
with.
you.
Yeah.
I want this
Exactly,
version
yeah.
of you to stay. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm getting like tingles talking about it because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's so, just after I finished the film, it's just so like, it's such a depressing end to the film if you take this interpretation about it, right? It's like you had it, man. Like you got over it, you had it. Everything was back to being like also think about the apartment with the wife. Like everything's really well lit. Everything looks really nice and clean and very clear.
Oh, the
and then
well,
his
the color
seedy
grading
apartment is like
totally
super
changes.
Yeah.
When it's just like when it's not with at the apartment that is where the wife lives, like the rest of the movie is brown. Like it is
Yeah.
like the most depressing monochromatic brown.
It's like
and
the
then the-
dingy yellow, the dirty
Yeah,
Yes,
like
yellow.
and
it's
it-
filmed in
yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah, and it's like
don't
or the
get
filter they
political
put
on
on
us
things
right
to
now.
make.
Well, no, that's what they do.
It's the filter that Hollywood puts on things to be like, this is a not a first world country. This is a place
Yeah,
that
you're
we
right,
think
you're right,
everybody's
you're
the
right.
worst.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everything else in the movie is like that super monochromatic. Like all of the cityscape is like everything, all the lighting, his apartment, every piece of clothing he wears, in the classroom, like everywhere he goes. And then the only times you get any kind of real change in color is when he's with his wife at the apartment. And then you
Yeah.
get bright, more natural light. You get change, like there's some difference in color and things like that. But the rest of the movie is all monochrome, basically.
Yeah.
And
Dirty.
yeah, just kind of
Because I
feels-
think he spends the whole movie like fighting against the addiction and he doesn't get out of it till the very end, right?
Or does he?
Yeah, I don't think
Well,
he
he
gets out
does
at all.
for a
but-
split
Yeah, right.
second.
I also think I don't know if anything you watched, Aaron, brought this up, or like maybe this is part of Denis Villeneuve's interpretation of, or like portrayal of the spider as being somehow a representation of femininity and commitment. But I did think it was interesting that when he goes into the room at the very end and she's a spider, the spider like freaks out and like goes into the corner, like it's afraid of him, which I don't know how, like I don't know if anybody covered that as far as like what it was supposed to, the meaning of that, like, because I would think that if it's I don't know, it seems like, and not to say that like there's not a room to interpret that as addiction or something else, but it is interesting because you would think that like it would be portrayed either as something that's just kind of passive or something that's maybe a threat to him instead of something that is threatened by him. I don't know, because that was kind of how I saw it, was that it looked like it was afraid of him, and maybe that's just, maybe it wasn't really supposed to come across that way, but it definitely seemed like it withdrew away from him, like into the corner.
Oh yeah,
And he didn't look threatened by it at all. He was just kind of like,
Here we go
like
again.
resignation.
Exactly,
Here we
yeah,
go
like-
again.
the cycle continues. So that I think that's pretty much the consensus from what I gathered, is that so he kills off this, narcissistic version of himself, or he thinks he does, and there's actually some like direct things that kind of lead you to think this. Like the moment that she says like "I want you to stay" or something like that is like within
Mm,
3 seconds of the car crash that
mm,
happens.
mm,
And so yeah, everything's hunky dory. He's on the righteous path now. And then the next day comes, he opens the letter, finds the key, and immediately, the cycle continues again. And he calls up to Helen saying like he's already made his decision. He's
yeah.
gonna, not be home tonight. And so he goes back into the room, and the spider cowers because it thinks that, if it's a representation of commitment and his, relationship with femininity, he's going to squash that.
Hmm.
He's already done it. Like he's the enemy. He's the problem, and he views his wife and his commitment to his new unborn baby and all that kind of stuff to be, a spider that traps him.
Hmm. That's an interesting. I didn't think about it that way. Like that. That it's something that he sees himself as held captive by, like
Yeah,
commitment to his wife and to like a child on the way, and it's like he sees that as restrictive
and
to him making wanting to make the lifestyle changes or choices that he wants to make.
yeah, and like the battle with his subconscious is, he thought that it's one version of himself that he could just get rid of, and this problem would go away. This, narcissist who, uh, has this, weird relationship with spiders. Every time it's the narcissist who's having all these spider visions.
Hmm.
And even after he dies, the good version of Jake Gyllenhaal, ends up with a spider ending.
Well, I mean, it's the thing that like you can't ever really kill an addiction. Like you'll hear people talk about this who have been like 10 years sober or whatever, and they're like, I still won't touch alcohol. It's like, I know that like it doesn't take that much, even if I've been 10 years sober. Like, I know it doesn't take that much to just get the ball rolling again. Right. And so it's like, it doesn't take that long for him to go right back into it because he starts just considering going back into it. Right. Something comes in, it's a chance encounter with the key in his pocket. Right. And he just starts thinking about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's so many ways you can dissect this whole thing. Because I feel like addiction, while it is like a profound emotion or feeling or whatever, um, that this might even touch on something deeper, which is like, yeah, your fear of commitment and coming to terms with that and all that weird baggage. Like, I feel like addiction, at least in my case, how I feel about it is addiction is something that is just more, more basic, more tangible, and then this other stuff, like, fear of being loved or being vulnerable, and being in a commitment, being in a committed relationship, all this kind of stuff, uh, is just so much more deeper in the human psyche and kind of stuff like that. Like addiction is a symptom of repressed needs or whatever, and then this other stuff is just so deep in the abyss that it would take a long time to untangle its webs.
I think it could be. I think it I think it depends. I think you take it case by case. Like I think like obviously there's a reason for every addiction that happens, right? Like there's an inciting event that like causes somebody to. And but also you have people that have natural dispositions to addictions anyways, right? You have people that have more addictive personalities.
Oh
And a
yeah,
lot of times that's more with something like that makes them feel good. So, well, I mean, usually addiction is like that, but like, something like alcohol or even just like, I don't know, gluttony or gambling or something like that. Like a lot of times having a personality that is like satiated by that and pursuing that is a common thing.
Yeah, have you guys ever heard of Rat Park?
Is that
The
a person or a
psychological like study that they did on rats with
no?
cocaine. Okay, so
Hey.
if
Oh,
you
I have
give
heard
a
about this
rat
a little bit.
inside of a cage, 2 bottles of water, one's got cocaine, one doesn't, it's gonna, get addicted to the cocaine and drink a whole lot of that. But this is it's just a cage. That's it. But then if you put a rat inside of like a really big and nice cage with toys and other
With
rats to play with and all this kind
stimulation.
of stuff, to where they can find fulfillment in their existence, then they don't touch the cocaine water. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, have
And
seen that.
so
Okay,
I
but is
I
go
don't
ahead.
think that addiction is that simple, and that yeah, there's just certain people who are more uh, prone to that itch. But I do think that at the end of the day, like a really common theme, and maybe the theme overarching over everybody, is that people who have an addiction are you're trying to fill a hole eventually. Like it might start off, innocent enough where you just it feels good, and as someone who has gone through it, yeah, that's kind of that's how it starts. It felt nice, it was really fun, but then eventually, it takes a dark turn, and I think that's when it becomes addiction. Is when you are willing to sacrifice your health, your relationships with other people, yada yada, just to try to get that original feel good feeling, like you're trying to fill a hole.
I guess case by case, then it's like what do you fill the hole with, right? Because like at a certain on a certain level, it can just be distractions. It's like if you're addicted to something, you can distract yourself with other things that temporarily fill the hole, but the real like drive, I guess, is you have to find something else that will permanently fill the hole, because if you don't, it's only ever being temporarily filled, which means eventually, whether it's a month or a year or 5 years or 10 years, eventually at some point down the road, it comes back if you haven't permanently filled it, right?
Yeah, because you're dealing with a symptom, not the disease itself. The disease
Right.
is you have the hole, and
Yeah, you're
you
just
gotta
putting a
figure out
band-aid on something that needs
what's going on there.
surgery.
Say what?
Like,
What?
so it's like you're putting a band-aid on something that needs surgery. Like,
Yeah,
Well, it's like okay, you can put alcohol in the hole, and as long as you put alcohol there, it's like you feel good. Or maybe you can plug something else in instead, as a distraction, as a substitute, and you still feel good. But it's like there's still a hole there, right? And you got to keep putting something into it. So like you can be addicted to it, or you can be addicted to like avoiding it by substituting it with other things.
which to me that's why I feel like addiction is, again, it's not like an easy problem or simple, but I feel like you can take a look at addiction and know where things went wrong. That there's that it's a symptom, and you got to find where the symptom is coming from. Whereas, yeah, having issues with commitment or self-esteem, whatever, is just so nebulous and
well, and it's like it might not even be something that is like a decision that's being made for him. Like if you're talking about this aversion to commitment or responsibility, I guess, in a way that like it in the way that it's depicted here, at least, it could be something where it's like not that he's just being like, oh, that just like ties me down and takes away my fun, but that it might be also trying to get at there's like something fundamentally broken with him, instead of it just being, oh, I want to be selfish and avoid my responsibilities because it's more fun that way. That it could be that like with how dark the imagery is around it, that it might be trying to suggest that it is really something that's more of an issue that's not just a choice or not just a failure to like address the root problem, but that could be something that like there's something like in his psyche that's not right.
Do you think that that is in every person? It just, in some people, it manifests itself as addiction and it just manifests differently in other people? Or do you think that it's like a thing that only some people have this issue in their in their psyche or whatever that causes it?
Are you saying you think everybody has the same problem with commitment, or just everybody has a problem that's that deep?
A
And
whole.
A problem, yeah.
okay,
I think
I mean,
everybody does. Nobody's
I think so.
perfect. We all got skeletons in the closet. I would like to think. I don't know. And if you
Well, either
don't
skeletons or
think
the
that you
closet.
have one, then you son of a bitch. I saw that.
Great audio content.
Or just things that you know about yourself that are things that nobody else knows, that you're like, yeah, I just gotta keep that, down. Maybe it's not a skeleton. I feel like skeleton in the closet kind of feels like there's like you've acted on something and you're hiding it. But I think that maybe even to the point of like maybe you haven't done something that's like wrong or taboo or whatever, but just that you know things about like yourself, like maybe that's what you're saying, Nate, of like what your own tendencies are or what your own like way of thinking is, that's so inherently a part of you. It's not like a choice that you chose to become this person, it's just who you've always been. And like yeah, it's not a good piece of you or not a good part of you. And like, yeah, everybody has a different coping mechanism. So
Yeah, I think everybody has insecurities, and not like the way that everybody thinks of them, but like, yeah, parts of themselves that they just don't want to touch. That makes them uncomfortable, you know what I mean, about themselves. And anybody who doesn't is either retarded or, is so narcissistic that,
They're in denial.
yeah. And even then, I think that,
Well,
they
but the thing
know.
is, like,
A part of them knows.
do you react to it by avoidance, um, or do you react to it by like actually trying to dive into the issue and discover the issue and solve the issue, right? Because the latter requires a lot of discipline and potentially self-control, but like a lot of like introspection and discipline, whereas the former is just like, well, just avoid it, you know? And I
Yeah.
think most people engage in the former rather than like actually trying to make themselves a better person. They think that by avoiding the dark sides of themselves, by just like trying not to engage in the things or like act in the way or whatever, that like they're being a better person. But in a way, it's just like, well, you're just avoiding the alcohol, but like you're still going to drink it and take a downward spiral sometime unless you actually, unless you actually find a way to get over it, to get past it.
yeah, it's like that thing that people say, if you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, like if you are, you're not.
I've never heard that.
Oh, really? Yeah, because it's like, yeah, like obviously there's a lot of ways you could apply that, but like in this situation, it's like, yeah, if all you're doing is avoiding it or trying to like mask it with something else, like it doesn't change the fact that you have this issue and eventually you're gonna succumb to it. If you don't understand it, or if you're not willing to deal with it in some capacity, like, not to say that it's necessarily something you can like totally fix or remove, because I think that there are those things that it's like it's such a part of you that like you can't just be like, I just need to have better habits. It's like, you're always going to have this problem, even if it's not addiction, but you're always going to have this thing. And that, yeah, like if you don't address it at the root of whatever that is in some capacity, then yeah, no matter what you do, like at the surface level that people see, like you're still going to end up falling prey to whatever that issue is at some point. Like, you can't run from it forever if it's that much a part of your existence and who you've always been.
Well, yeah, I think as far as like at least addiction goes, there's like levels to defeating it. Like there's, for one, the level of just being able to avoid it in the first place. I would say that's a level, and then after that, like if you gave an alcoholic who hasn't drank in 20 years, a drink, would he be able, like, how would that affect him? Would he be so content at that point? Did he deal with the whole, and now he can actually have a drink and not, be like, oh, this is what I want. I want to be numb. I want to be
Well,
sedated.
like you have
And
to
I think that would
engage.
be the top level of the defeat. Like, that's when you actually defeat addiction. Is when you can do the thing, and it doesn't take over your life because
Mm,
you don't want
mm.
it to.
Because a lot of the things that people are addicted to are not inherently bad, right? Like alcohol,
In
gambling,
moderation,
like
yeah.
stuff. Exactly. It's not like these are.
You're not addicted to
Uh,
murder or something. Like,
okay, serial killing is different. That's like
Moderation.
a psychological issue.
my
I'm
point
not
is
gonna
that
call
like
that
what you're saying
addiction.
of like
You
it's
guys want to keep on talking?
What's
wait
that?
what?
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, you're good.
Like 30
Commitment
seconds.
issues.
I'll be right back. I know, amateur hour.
How do we know he's not just like engaging in whatever his vice is while he's in the bathroom? It's like, sorry, I gotta go do a line. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, talking about it just it's too much. I won't be able to make it through the rest of this.
Well, we know he's not past addiction then.
Yeah,
That's funny.
he's still at that bottom tier. He hasn't defeated it yet. He's got to go through his own 3-step program or whatever there.
But like, just talking about this makes me want to rewatch the film with this perspective now, right? Because it's like, even like the conclusions that I came to, I literally didn't come to those until like that final scene where she is a spider, right? And so it's like, with that perspective now, I want to, and it's not that long. It's only a 90-minute film, right? It's just heavy and slow. But like, part of me really wants to go back and give it a second viewing before too long, like to look for all the little clues, right?
Yeah.
And to try and
I
find
will
the
say,
things.
yeah, I would want to as well because also think that like a part of me, at least for a decent chunk of the movie, was still kind of like, I think that like I wasn't fully convinced they were the same person yet either. So there was still a part of me that was like looking for, is there going to be some other thing that comes out of the blue that's like, or maybe not out of the blue, but like, is there going to be some other component, like a final twist to this that's going to link, like, because I think, and maybe it's just for the sake of like disorienting you or making the movie a little more weird, I guess, when you watch it. But there's enough things sprinkled in throughout the movie that cast like reasonable doubt, I guess, on these two being actually the same person. Because, and like part of it is like, I think there's a lot of it happening in his head, but it's not explicitly shown that it's happening in his head. But it's so like, I guess the lies he's telling himself are so convincing that he's like going through the steps of like actually being this other person. Because it's like, what, some of it, like forgetting your keys, and being like, oh, I have to sneak into, like using that as his lie. Like, when he's trying to be like, as the professor trying to get into the actor's apartment, being like, oh,
Walks past the house.
Being like, he walks past it. He doesn't know where it is. But even before that of like being like, oh, my wife's not home and I forgot my keys, like that kind of stuff. It's like, it feels like such an elaborate ruse to come up with in your own head for the sake of, keeping identity separate or whatever, that I'm saying like, regardless of how much of that is ever happening in for real and how much of it is just to set the, that it's in his head, I think there's enough of those things sprinkled in where you're like, yeah, that's a weird thing for that person to say or do if they know that there's not actually a second person, if they know that. And so there was enough of that, I think, throughout the movie that it had me still being like, is there going to be another like final twist to this, or are they just actually the same person? And by the end I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure they're the same person, but I felt pretty secure in that. But I think I was watching a lot of the movie expecting there to be some other twist because there were enough little things laid that you were like, it's not immediately obvious that they're the same person. And so a part of me kept thinking like, there might be some like quirky, maybe not sci-fi, but some kind of quirky twist to it.
I thought it was going to be more of a sci-fi film. I think for the majority of the film, the direction I thought it was going was that it was like a different kind of split universes, right? Whatever
Yeah.
parallel universes, but somehow they actually were living somehow in the same world because like there's things where um, when he sees himself in the film, he goes back and he rewatches the scene and he compares a photo of himself to like the actor in the film. The photo that he compares is ripped, and towards the end of the film, when the
Oh yeah,
professor
you see it
goes to the
again.
actor's home, the picture is in a frame, but it's the full picture, right? It's not
Him and
ripped,
his
Yeah.
and
wife.
so it's exactly, and so it's things like that where it's like, okay, a lot of what we see is not actually real in the film, like in the world of the film, whatever, like I don't know, him watching that film is not real, right? Because he doesn't have two copies of the photo, one that's ripped and one that's not, right? And so it's like there's definitely a lot of the film that doesn't actually happen in the quote unquote real world. So
Right. And like
Yeah, I
that's
think
what I'm
that
saying
any
is like you get
scene. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna, yeah, like I think by the time you get to the end of the movie, you're pretty convinced of that, and you're like, oh yeah, so much of this wasn't happening. But the problem is, yeah, that first watch through, like you said, I kept expecting it to be a more sci-fi take on this, where like there is somehow these two, like I thought they were the same person, but yeah, that there's like some kind of like
yeah,
parallel universe, split timeline, something like that going on, where somehow they're interacting with each other, but they are the same person, but different versions of that person, like you know different possibilities for how somebody could have turned out or something like that. And so when you're watching it with that kind of mindset, and then also there's enough little things sprinkled in that you're like, yeah, there could be something like that going on. Then by the time you get to the end and you realize that, oh, these are the same person, it does, yeah, you feel like you got to go back and rewatch it now with that in mind the whole time so that you can watch for those other things that might be more subtle or to pick up on them in just a different way and how they would connect to this is all the same person, this is all the same life, instead of looking for there to be some twist that's going to come in at the end. And so yeah, I guess that's the point I was trying to get at, was that there was enough things that for most of the movie that I was like, oh, there might still be a twist coming. And then by the time I realized that there wasn't, it was like, okay, well, now I've spent the whole movie kind of waiting for something like that to happen, and it's not going to. And so I think, yeah, I would totally adjust the way I would view those scenes again on a second watch through.
Yeah, in
definitely.
a weird way, the twist was the lack of a twist, like, and the lack of a satisfying ending. Because I mean, like, if the movie just ends where he kills off that worst version of himself, and he's with his wife and he's crying, it's a very vulnerable moment. He succeeds. If the movie ended right there, very nice, very good, happy even. But then it, doesn't end that way, and it's pretty sad.
I
Um,
think maybe that's the point of the film is that like addiction is so hard to break out of, right? Because like you're saying, the film could end. It could even end in the next scene where he finds the key and he looks at it and throws it in the trash or something, right? And it could
Yeah.
end that way,
yeah,
but it doesn't.
that would also be good. Um, so last episode that we did, we were all talking about how, like, whether we rewatch movies or not, and which, what kind of movie it would take to, you know, be worthy of considering a rewatch. This is definitely one for me. Like,
Hmm.
I could probably watch two or three times and glean some more out of it. Um, One scene that I think is pretty telling to whether he's the same person or not is, so his wife goes to the college to quote unquote meet up with uh, this stranger that looks like her husband, and then when she gets back after having this uncanny uh, experience, I don't know if you guys remember, but she's like cry. She looks like she's scared, and she's crying. She's like,
Yeah.
"What's going on?" Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which,
Hmm.
I mean, would that be how you would react if you saw, somebody who looked similar or looked exactly like your spouse? Because she looks like she saw like
Oh, you know what's something else
an
that happens
alien
in
or
that
the
scene?
ghost or something like that.
Well, there's another part to that scene though. So she's crying and being like shaken up, but then he goes, he says something about like, I don't understand what's going on, and she says, I think you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
Yeah.
I forgot about that until just now. And I think that, yeah, when now thinking about it in terms of like, this has been the same dude and he's just struggling with these issues that like, I mean, I don't know to what extent if she really went like and saw him, if he's like what exactly happened there. I would want to rewatch that, but I think that yeah, that's pretty telling that like she's aware that there are things that he's keeping from her, that this is that he has these struggles of some kind even if she doesn't know the extent of them, and that she's like, yeah, I you don't play dumb with me, like you know exactly what's going on, don't act like this is some kind of mystery, like you're creating this problem, you're causing this problem.
I think she knows more than what the movie lets on. Because if it did let on, then we wouldn't have
Right.
the mystery of whether he's two people or not. Um, and I think that she's just playing along with it because I don't know, she doesn't want him to go or something like that. I mean, she probably cares about him and all that kind of stuff, but I think she knows that he's got some weird split personality thing going on right now, um, and is just going along with it because she's scared or something.
Do you think it's as extreme as a split personality? Because, like, if the encounter she has with him at the university is real, then he's really there and he's really interacting with her, but he's not interacting with her as if he knows her or she's his wife, right?
I think
So,
that would
like,
lend I think that would lend some like credibility though to the fact that she comes home shaken up though, because
That's what I
like
mean. Like,
yeah, I
mhm.
think that like if you yeah, if you know that that's your spouse but they're not acting like they know you,
yeah, how many
and
months are you? Like, ugh.
yeah, like that's the kind of thing that like it would freak you out a little bit, and I think that that would make you feel very uncomfortable, and it probably would be jarring. um and I could understand her coming home and being like, I don't want to talk to you, I'm like, I'm processing this, and then just kind of crying and being
You
like,
know,
what.
oh man,
So not
you know
just
what's
that, but
such a
she calls him up immediately after, and he doesn't answer the
yeah,
phone
And
yeah,
until he's out of light or out of sight.
right, right, right.
And so she experiences both versions of him. Like that would
Uh
be
huh.
so jarring.
yeah,
So what's the? There's another thing too, where like when the professor calls the actors home, and he's talking to him in the other room, and he comes back out, and she accuses him of um that he was talking to an angry husband or something because he's sleeping with someone else. I think she even says, "Is it her again?" or something like that. Um, and he's like, "No." He's like, "What? Do you think I'm just like making this all up?" And she's like, "Yes." And we're like, as we're watching the movie, we're like, "We know he's not. We know that he's talking to some other guy that just happens to look
Yeah.
like him." But it's like, no, she's actually right. He is actually just making it up. You know, it's crazy.
yeah, like because in that case, if that's because I think we can assume that any scene with the wife is actually happening for real, which means that yes, he went into their pantry and had a fake phone conversation with somebody. And it's like, it's funny, but it's also not funny because if he's also behaving like that, where like he acts like he doesn't know her in public and things like that, and it's like a complete shift, like that would be weird and like strange and uncomfortable and scary, which maybe also explains why, if that spider represents her in some way, that there would be that kind of like cowering at the end, because it's like, which version of him are you getting? Like, are you getting your loving husband, or are you getting this narcissistic guy who acts like he doesn't know you? And you know, like I don't know. It. If he really does have a some kind of split personality thing, I think that actually kind of explains a lot of the scenes with his wife, because like she has totally different reactions to him on things, and is sometimes very comfortable and like seems to be very in love with him, and other times is like clearly like very uncomfortable around him, depending on what's been going on.
Do you guys think that the girlfriend is real, or is she just like the personification of like his addiction or whatever?
I think maybe a blend of both. Like, yeah, like she was real or something like that at some point. I don't think she dies with him at the end. and maybe even you maybe some of their experiences together are real, but I don't think that she dies at the end. You know what I mean? I think at some point the road forks, and
Is there
Yeah,
is there actually a
I
car crash?
I
Because
don't
he's in
know.
the shower, he's listening to the radio, and it mentions that there's a car crash, but
She
he
turns it
wasn't
off.
driving.
I know she turns it off right before you get any more details. And I did make a note of that. I was like, is it a coincidence that there's a car crash on the radio, or was there a car crash? I think, I mean, like, if you're going with the theory that, like, he just created that scenario as a way to kill off the, or if it's, it maybe not even that he created the scenario, if it's just something that the movie is showing to us to represent that he is trying to cut off that part of his personality, then I don't think there's any reason to assume it was a real car crash. But it is interesting that that's what I'm saying. Like, there's enough of those little things in the movie, though, that it gives you a reason to be like, well, maybe that actually did happen that way. Or maybe that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, yeah, it immediately goes to like, there was a car crash. There was only one car involved. Like, they haven't. Things like that, where it's like, it's obviously like very similar to what happened, what we're shown with the car crash. So it's like, yeah, maybe that was all just shown to us for the benefit of like representing that he's killing this off, but who knows? Like, it's, and as far as the girlfriend goes, I think I'm with Aaron that like, I think that probably some of the early on stuff we saw with her probably was real in a way that like, I think he's obviously sleeping with other women. So there are, maybe she's just kind of like a, because she is, I will say something that's interesting is that we're calling her the girlfriend, but she doesn't really behave like a girlfriend. Because if you remember, those first few times when it's showing kind of the cycle of the professor's life, like she comes over in the evening, they have sex, and then she leaves. And like
Yeah, my
it,
first thought was
and
prostitute, actually.
and yeah, and it kind of feels like maybe she's not a prostitute, but if she's just a stand-in for all of these other women that he's sleeping with or has cheated on his wife with in some way, then that kind of makes sense that like she's real in that he is seeing other people, but maybe she's kind of she's just a face to represent whoever those other women are. Because I think otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense that it would be like she doesn't behave like a girlfriend. Like she just comes over, they have sex, and then she leaves. And it's like that doesn't feel like an actual person. That feels like a representation of this other side of his life that he's behaving in this way. So I don't think she's dead, but I also don't know if she's a real person in that way.
yeah, now that you bring that up, I don't think that she's real at all. I think anything that has that version of himself was like a figment of his imagination, his weird war with his subconscious. Um,
So I feel like we need to talk about a couple things still that we haven't talked about yet. One is the scene where the actor version of himself, um, and there's a lot of time dedicated to this in a relatively short film. There's a long scene where he stalks the girlfriend. It's like probably a 3 minute scene where he like follows her and stalks her, and nothing ever kind of comes out of that other than a little bit later where he's in front of the mirror and he's like practicing what he's going to say to the guy to blackmail him into letting him sleep with his girlfriend, right? Which is like, if you're still thinking about still thinking about them as two people, it's like, okay, so he doesn't actually think that the professor slept with his wife. He's just using this situation. He's like, oh, I can manipulate this situation to sleep with someone, right? He's like, because he's acting his routine in front of the mirror, and he's like
Yeah.
really intense, right? And it's like really convincing. And then he's like, oh, that's good. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's good, right? It's so dark. It's so dark.
if it is like him having a war with his subconscious, then I feel like that bit, and this is where this is what pushed me towards the realm of they are the same people when I was watching the movie. That's like him doing some weird sort of deal with himself. You know what I mean? Like this, he thinks that he's two halves of a person, and the womanizing, narcissist part of himself wants to what's the word? He wants to make a deal and the way that he says like once I do this, then
I'm
you'll
done.
never see
We're
me again.
done. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
It's like he's making a deal with himself. He's like, okay, fine, just one more time. Like, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
go
yeah, and
back
then
to it one more time, right? One more hit, one more whatever, right?
and isn't it kind of weird how he does this? The actor version does this, and then he dies immediately after.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think that it's safe to say that he does not have uh, a good relationship with women,
Yeah.
right?
Hot
um,
take.
another
As long
like
as we're
it's not
drawing really like
right.
ambiguous conclusions, I think we
Like
can
I
go
don't
with
think
that.
it's just that he's got like a sex addiction or something like that. I think that it's just his relationship with women and being controlled and this weird uh, his weird connection with femininity um, is the problem. After he has his meeting with his mom, that's when the giant spider over the city takes place.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think his
So
relationship is there anything I don't remember the scene that well. You saw it more recently. Is there anything in that scene that is like that you would consider of I don't know importance to his character? Like, is there anything any sort of like attitudes that his mother displays or because like the only thing that's really indicative or the only thing that I feel like really comes out of that scene is that she mentions that she's glad he finally gave up his pipe dream of being a third rate actor.
yeah, so what I watched the movie, I was just too busy trying to figure out where everything was going, and then all of a sudden there's a big ass spider the size of a city, and I'm like, what is happening? So it wasn't until later that I watched one of the videos and it said that, oh yeah, the spider shows up right after his meeting with his mom. Um, and I don't remember whether the video itself made these connections, but I mean, if you kind of think of it, uh, he's talking to his mom, and she kind of has this overbearing, looming presence. Same thing with the kind of controlling, nagging vibe that for some reason he associates women with. And so right after he deals with his looming presence in his life, there's all of a sudden a looming spider over the city.
Hmm.
So I think that, yeah,
And it's so
that,
ironic, right? Because like from what we've seen, like his wife is like she's just pure light, right? Like we don't
yeah,
see there's nothing wrong with her character. There's no dark side to her. There's nothing like for all intents and purposes, she is kind of like perfection, right? She's kind of like the beautiful part of the film. And so it's in no way truly she is in no way truly representative of like all the darkness that he is associating with women and maybe commitment. I don't know.
but she also is because at the very end, she's a freaking spider.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
But that's
obviously
not
that's
until he kills off
But
the other version of himself, and they're kind
and
of melded into one.
it's not real either. It's just what he sees
Oh
once
yeah,
he's
yeah,
made that commitment to go back into the downward spiral. Now he views her that way, right?
yeah. Because I'm sure that like the night before when they're having this lovely moment of he's taking off his shirt and he's becoming vulnerable in front of her, and it's kind of awkward, and you're like, as I was watching it, I was like, the nerdy, meek version of himself is doing something that seems kind of out of
Hmm.
character. Like he wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So far in the film, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would go and make this kind of play. But here he is doing that, and she asks him to take off his shirt, and to me, I figured that was a metaphor for like him becoming vulnerable in front of her. Um, and yeah, he does all that. It's very nice. I think that he was genuinely,
yeah. I think that some of that was real, like that
yeah.
connection that they're having. Those, like you said, that moment of vulnerability when he's on the couch crying and she just comes to him and is like,
And that's when his other version dies.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
immediately, the next day,
Dude, it's so freaking depressing.
I
Holy
know.
crap.
I really want to watch it again. I rented it for
Ah.
48 hours. I hate it.
Man. Okay, to take a lighter subject, I think the film looks really good. I think it
yes,
looks fantastic. Denny Villeneuve tends to do this thing where he loves to take really zoomed out panned shots of landscapes, a lot of times cities. So like you see this a lot in Blade Runner 2049. Obviously there's big panning shots in Dune. Like he's one of these directors that likes the really big scope kind of. There's a lot of really good shots.
Yeah,
No, it was a beautiful
I agree.
movie. Even with the horrible like monochrome brown for most of it, it's still aesthetically pleasing. I also liked the music choices. A lot of it was very like
Yeah.
old
Bold.
feeling
Yeah, the
music.
score was
Yeah,
very
I,
good. Yeah.
the whole movie to me felt old in a way. Like a lot of the just kind of in general, like the style choices of uh, the clothing on the professor, the all of the shots of the city. You don't see anything very modern. Like there's no neon signs. There's no like everything feels very dated in that way.
Well, it's all supposed to be drab, right? And
It's all very
kind of
drab, yeah.
sickly and yeah.
But yeah, sickly is a good word for it too. Like and so even but it's still it's aesthetically pleasing. It feels old. It feels like between the music. I think it said it was used they shot it in Technicolor, which is probably why it has that look as well of feeling like it's kind of a been plucked out of a different era in filmmaking in a way.
I don't know enough about Technicolor
Yeah,
to.
same. How about
I believe you.
how about the name of the film, Enemy?
On the nose.
Yeah,
Like what's the enemy?
himself.
Himself. Yeah.
Himself? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We're all on the
He
same page.
directs
Yeah.
himself.
I didn't
Like,
know if it
even
went
when,
deeper than that.
like, he thinks it's himself, right? And in a way, he's right. But the moment that he gets rid of that version of himself that he thinks is the enemy, one day later, one freaking day, and it turns out, no, that you are that guy.
You are
Yeah.
your own
Yeah,
enemy.
you think
Yeah.
you just
You're your own worst
build the
enemy, yeah.
whole no. Yeah. Depressing.
Yeah.
There's something addicting about depressing movies too, though, right? There's something addicting. Maybe it's just me, but there's something addicting about movies that don't have a happy ending, like because it causes an emotional reaction in you that is a strong emotional reaction, right? So it's like the same thing in horror films. It's like a lot of people are addicted, so to speak, to watching horror films, right? Because it's like those jump scares and that tension, even though it's almost like a negative, unpleasant feeling, it's like it's such a strong feeling that people really enjoy it a lot of times. So I feel like it's the same way for me a lot of times with movies that have like definitively just like sad, depressing, not happy endings. Like I kind of it makes me want to come back to them.
Well, for
Well,
me, it
because
would
I think
depend. Because, like, if it was depressing in the sense that, like, everybody around him is dying and, he's like not even that bad of a person, but like his wife gets cancer and his dog dies and all that kind of stuff. I don't think I it would invoke any sort of like empathy or
There has to be a reason for
relatability.
it.
Yeah, but when you have somebody who's so tragically fucked up in the head that you know that this is what takes place, and if you're I have to identify with the character in some way. I think for me to think it's depressing. So this movie, yeah, like wowza. What were you saying, Karina?
well, I was gonna say that like I think specifically when it's a movie that ends sadly or on some kind of down note, that also has a lot of room for like what ifs. Because that's what makes it because like you can have like you said, you can have a movie that's sad, but it's like there's no what if component to it. You're just like, yeah, this person just got dealt a rough hand or something in life. But when it's a movie like this, where a lot of this is the result of his own decisions and his own, like we talked about, like he's not addressing things in his life to some extent, it does open the door for a lot of like, well, what if he had done this instead? Or like, how would if he had decided to respond in a different way here? And you can see how like there's other ways that he maybe he could have resolved something, could have like started to fix it, could have gotten out of the cycle for good or whatever. And so then that is the compelling part, I think, when you can be like, oh, I can see so many ways this could have gone better, and you didn't take them.
Speaking of which, do you think that he's capable, or that people in general are capable of, overcoming that uh, that personal battle.
Well, some people do, right? And if some
Right.
people do, that means I believe that everyone is capable of it. If some people can do it, then I believe everyone, at least to a, theoretically, everyone's capable of it. Whether or not, like practically, that could be a lot more difficult for some people than others. But I think theoretically, it's possible for everyone.
It's because you see some people overcome things, be able to get out of addiction, overcome, just having the shittiest hand dealt to them. Like, it, because some people can do it and do that, absolutely the potential exists for other people too. But again, that's kind of where it comes back to the what ifs of like, well, what do you do with your circumstances though? What do you do when you have choices that you can make? Do you make the choices that send you back into that cycle of addiction or harm or whatever? Or do you try to do things differently to get yourself out? And like you said, I think that obviously there's a variety of circumstances, and some people are going to have more opportunities to get out. It's going to be an easier thing to get out of. And for some people, it's going to be like, technically that might be possible. Practically, is it ever going to happen? Probably not. But I think that everybody, like, especially when it comes to things like this, where like, regardless of whatever the root cause is of like addiction specifically, if whatever that hole is, you still get to make choices about how you cope. You still get to make choices about what you do. And so with that being said, I think there's always the possibility of getting out, of finally changing things for good.
In any situation short of somebody having, like, I don't know, maybe an actual debilitating mental disorder or something like that, like actual split personality disorder or something like that, I think, all of those maybe special cases notwithstanding, yeah, I agree. Like, everybody, it's technically possible for everyone. It's just a matter, like, coming down to, like, what is the problem? What is your personality? What's your environment? Like,
Yeah.
what's the
Well,
situation? Like, all these other factors affect how feasible it is. So,
yeah. I mean, free will is an illusion, so it doesn't exist. But um, I think that one thing to, I guess, consider is like, we see people overcome challenges, right? And
yeah.
let's say, people have gotten over their addiction or whatever. How do we know that they've actually done that? Like with this character, do you think that he's going to? I figure that he's going to just keep on going, uh, and like keep on going with his life as he's been doing it. And I think that's the reaction you get in his face when he sees that he's killed off that part of himself, and yet here he is face to face with his unreconciled emotions or relationship with women and addiction and commitment, and he doesn't look sad. He looks almost kind of like accepted, like a disappointed acceptance.
Yeah, that's what I was
Like I
saying.
don't
Like,
think that
it's
he's
like
changing.
resignation. It's like resignation. Like, he's just resigned
Yeah,
to, like, this is what it is. He's not surprised. He's not upset. There's no real reaction from him. It's just kind of this like, all right, here we go again.
Like,
yeah,
oh, here we go. This is happening to me again,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
But there's no emotional reaction from him, at least on his face. Like, when he sees that spider at the very end, his face is so, it's not quite neutral, but it's pretty close. Like, there's definitely no, if there is any kind of emotional impact on the
Well,
character, it's so small that it's not visible
he
to the
doesn't look
and
audience.
surprised.
well, he doesn't look surprised, right? Which to me implies that this is not the first time that he has come out of it and gone back into it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
which
Not
the
surprised
if the
and not
movie talks
upset.
about in the beginning of the movie, the cycle and dictatorships and
yeah,
What is that
yeah,
quote that's at the very beginning? Chaos is just an
is
order
order
that
yet
has,
undeciphered.
yeah.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah. Which, I mean, like, there's definitely an element of like maybe trying to say that it doesn't matter what he does, this character is always going to end up back right here. Like he could maybe take the choices and do them differently, but he's never going to. He's never going to make enough of the right choices or make the right choices at the right time to fully break the cycle. Like this is like his, at this point, like his determined route is kind of what it feels like. Because not only is he not surprised, he's also not upset. Like, it doesn't feel like he was actually trying that hard to break it either. Because I think that if he had been here before, but he was really determined to get out, maybe he wouldn't be surprised, but he would probably be angry or something that he didn't beat it. But instead, it's just like a complete... Yeah, it's like something, but instead it's just like, he's like, yeah, nah, kind of figured this would happen. All right.
Yeah.
Give it another go at some point down the road. But
it happens really quickly, too. I mean, it's like...
The next day.
12-hour
not even
window,
the next day.
right?
Oh, yeah, it's probably like an 8-hour window.
Yeah. Yeah.
That quote is actually from the book that this is adapted by.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, maybe I
read the book now.
Right. Maybe I need to rewatch the film. Maybe I just need to go read the book.
Because what was the book called? The Double.
The Double.
Double,
Yeah.
is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like I kind of want to read it as well and see what didn't make it into the film and if that changes the way you interpret the story.
I have one big thing that didn't make it in the film, but I don't know if I want to like spoil it for you guys or not. I don't know.
Oh, have you've read it?
No, but in the interview that they did right after the movie, he talks about like some creative choices he made that he felt like in this kind of this movie made me realize something that like I think oftentimes we think of books as being like the superior medium, you know, and like the more intellectual medium. I don't know if anybody else thinks of it that way or not, but like, yeah, with movies you can just sit there and shut your brain off. Whereas with books, you know, you have to have an active imagination to actually enjoy it and all that kind of stuff. But I think that this movie was a good example of one where like you really have to churn your brain in order to glean anything from it, because like I feel like in the book there's going to be a lot more between the lines, as it were, that you know it'll be easier to follow along with what's going on. But with this,
potentially, there's some books that have very ambiguous writing, and they still leave kind of a lot up to be determined by the reader.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like,
He has to
typically,
use like visual motifs and stuff to. Yeah.
Right.
well, like,
yeah.
in a way, like the way that this movie is made, with him having kind of like a split personality that's represented, that's like a way of like seeing into his mind. Like that's the biggest problem, or a big difficulty with films, is that like there's no internal monologue, right? Or if there is, a lot of times it just comes across as cheesy. So you can't oftentimes display the main character or the character's thoughts audibly, because then it just comes across as being really weird. Whereas that's a very common thing to do in a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do want to read it, so don't if there's like some of the stuff from that, don't spoil it, because I think I want to read it and see what else is in there and like how that shapes my take on the story, I guess.
Yeah.
Ratings? I haven't thought about mine at all, but I guess like after watching it, like I kept thinking about it, right? Like I couldn't forget about it. Like it kept coming back, and I kept thinking about it again and again and again, which is a good sign of a really good movie.
Yeah.
But it's like there were so many things like after that first viewing that like felt like that I couldn't piece together, that I like wasn't totally satisfied with it. But I feel like after our conversation now, like I'm trying to, I guess it depends. I think we talked about this last time, but I guess it kind of depends on how you're rating the movie. But it's like I'm trying to figure out how this isn't a 10 from like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want to say a critical perspective, but it's like, as far as like the message that the movie's trying to convey, yes, okay, maybe one thing you could say is that, well, it conveys the message so maybe too subtly. Like
Well, what
maybe
is
it's
the
too,
message?
yeah, right? Like,
What's
exactly, that's
that
my
like?
point. It's like,
Is it hope? Like,
maybe it
yeah.
is too ambiguous and too subtle, but it's like, if it was too overt, we wouldn't be able to sit here for 2 hours and discuss it like this, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, change my mind, but like maybe this is a 10 out of a 10. I'm not really sure. I'm not saying it's like my favorite movie, and I'm not even saying that it's like something I want to watch. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I love
You just
coming
can't
back
find
to
any
Enemy,
flaws.
but I just can't really find any flaws after one view. Yeah.
Well, so what about like when you first watched the movie? You know, no discussion and all that kind of stuff. What was your thoughts then? Because
My
to me,
thoughts were
I have a
like,
different rating from when I watched the movie, and then from when I watched all the explainer stuff. I'm like, oh,
sure,
that makes so much
sure,
sense.
sure. I think my initial, I probably would have gone with like a 7.5 or an 8. Like, okay, for kind of what I said, which is that like there's so much about the film that's confusing. It's like, could this film have been maybe a bit clearer about what it's actually trying to say? But then after, so like that would be like, okay, maybe a 7.5 or an 8 because like I like what it's doing, but I don't think that the message is conveyed clearly enough. But now after discussing it, I'm like, oh no, maybe it's just the perfect amount.
What about you?
Well, Nate
What's it
stole,
like,
I feel like a lot
7.5,
of
8? Or 10, I guess.
I mean, I'm going
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
10 now.
All right, hell yeah, all right.
uh,
I resent that, but all right.
of course you
It's
do.
like fundamentally cannot agree, but
Yeah, I feel like Nate stole a lot of some of the things I was gonna say because it's like I agree. There's not at least through one watch through, there's nothing that I feel like needs to be picked apart about the movie where I have any actual critiques of the film itself. Um, I also think that yes, if I had had to give a rating before talking about it and having time to digest it and mull some of these things over, probably would have been. I was thinking probably about a 7, maybe a seven
just
and a
based on
half.
like your enjoyment.
Yeah, and my understanding again, like I think that the three of us discussing it has, I mean, obviously, like between Aaron watching the from the director and Nate just having like kind of his own theory about what things represented, I think you guys had some of it more fleshed out than I did, and so by hearing those opinions, it's or interpretations has really made me appreciate it more because I think part of it is probably like I only watched it last night, so I haven't had a ton of time to sit and like really think about it, but it hasn't left my mind. It's it's been like replaying bits and pieces of it the whole time, and then yeah, having a discussion with you guys has made me appreciate some of those things more and also view them differently where I can see feel less confused and more like, oh yeah, there's like an actual there's a method here. There's something. There's a really an interesting way of making an interesting statement. And so yeah, I think I'd probably go with it a 10 at this point as well. Like not my favorite movie of all time or anything like that. It's not going to be in my top 10 films, but I do want to rewatch it. It makes me want to read the book as well, and it hasn't left my brain up to this point, and I think it's probably going to be a while before it does, just because it is so interesting and unsettling and sad, and there's just so many pieces
Compelling.
to it that is what?
Compelling, I feel like
Yes.
is the word I would use.
Yeah.
Grossly human.
Hmm.
Like it shows
Yeah.
him really seedy, like yeah, parts of I don't know, human spirit, mind, subconscious. I really, really, really wish I had like watched this movie like even months ago and could like properly digest it like organically instead of watching any extra stuff that could lean me one way or the other.
Mm.
But yeah, watching it, I think I probably would have gave it like a 7, maybe 7.5 out of 10. And then after getting all the details Why are you smiling?
Here comes a 9.5 because I
Hey,
can't rate it
hey.
a 10.
It was, yeah, pretty cool. Well, cause like nothing is like, okay, we're not gonna get into that. Yeah, like a 9.5, 9.7. Super high up there. What do you want from me? There's no
No,
way that there's nothing that
you
could be
know,
improved in this movie.
you know
There's
what we want
nothing
from you.
that can be improved.
But go ahead. Like, yeah, give your reasoning. Sorry, I'm not trying to like
Well, that's basically.
stampede your
I can't
rating.
think of anything, but I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, is he
So
the end all be all?
say what?
Huh?
Just saying, is he the end all be all of how we rate movies? Stanley
Well, he's
Kubrick.
just known for being anal about
No, I know.
shots and
I
stuff
know.
like that. Yeah. So, um, would you guys watch? Are you guys gonna watch this again?
Yeah, at some point.
Same. I'm probably gonna do it this afternoon.
Oh dang. Okay. I was gonna say I'll probably give it like I think I watched it
I think
5
my
or 6.
9.7 means more than your 10. I think I just want to lay that out there. Like
Shots
it's more
fired.
significant. I'm just saying. Like I'm over here. Like I want to watch it today. Also, I have a 48-hour window, so
So it means nothing, Aaron.
There's some external factors affecting Aaron's decision.
Yeah.
No, I think I think it was I don't know, it was less than a week ago that I watched it, and I feel like I would want to give it a little more time to marinate before coming back to it. But I do want to watch it a second time. Just
yeah.
like we were saying, like I think there's just so much approaching the film with a different mindset. And it's not, I wouldn't tell somebody what it was about so that they could watch it like that the first time. It's like, I think it's good to go on the journey with him through the first viewing. And then it's like, now you can come back the second time really as like, not all knowing, but it's like you have a full perspective finally to like view the things that happen. So I
Yeah.
do
I
want to
will
watch it
say
again.
that
And
there's a lot of detail in the movie. Like there's graffiti of people doing like the Roman, salute on the walls. There's a bit where he's passing by some art that has a woman stepping on a building. Another bit where he's in the movie store and it's next to the movie he grabs is like the 50-foot woman, gigantic woman movie. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, but yeah,
mm-mm.
there's apparently a lot of Easter eggs that just point to his unhealthy relationship with femininity. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but like apparently in philosophy, I just thought of this right now. Chaos is considered to be like with like the whole yin and yang thing. Chaos is a feminine trait, and then masculinity is the yin or whatever. Calm, stoicism. I don't know
I
if you guys ever heard of
have
that.
not heard that before. No.
I haven't
That's
heard
something really
that.
big in philosophy. I think in like
So
Eastern
there,
stuff.
yeah, that's interesting.
So
I'm
that just
not
plays to
familiar
the quote from earlier.
Yeah, right. Chaos is order yet undeciphered. Right.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I
So
think
women are just an enigma till you
course.
figure them out.
I think I also want to watch it. Like I'm not going to turn around and watch it again today or something. But I want to, like
Yeah, who
what
would
Nate
do
said,
that?
I want to give myself a little more time to like continue digesting it. But also I want to watch it now with Bradley cuz he didn't watch it with me. And I
Yeah.
want to watch it with him because I know we'll be able to have a good discussion, and I'm interested to see what he's going to bring, like what he's going to get from it as a first watch through and how that might influence our, the things we've discussed here. And like, so I'm excited to watch it with him. I think he's really going to like it. And so that'll probably be my second watch through. Like, I don't know when that'll be, probably in the near future, but yeah, I definitely plan to see it again. Cause I feel like, kind of like, I mean, it's not the same, but kind of like you're talking about the Easter eggs and stuff, but even beyond that, just like any movie that's really well written, like, like a lot of Nolan movies where it's like, once you've seen it once and you know where the story is going, being able to go back and watch it because there's so many, not just Easter eggs, but like layers built into the dialogue, the body language, the lighting, all kinds of things that once you know more about the story, just really provides an enrichment to how you can enjoy the story being told to you. And I think that this movie's going to have a lot of that.
Well, there's a lot of things where it's like on the surface level it means one thing, but once you understand the true meaning, it actually means something else, right?
Or
Yeah.
what we
A lot of
perceive
the
to be true meaning.
interactions between him and his wife, I feel like, are probably that way, where it's like when you're viewing it the first time from like, oh, there's two people and they're just similar. A lot of the interactions he has with his wife, you interpret differently than knowing that it's actually the same person. So
Right.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those movies that would be really fun to watch with another person after already
Mm.
seeing it for yourself and kind of, uh, thinking about all the stuff like the metaphors and all that kind of stuff. And just watching their reaction, and then also getting to the end of the movie, and they're like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" And then you'd be
Right,
like,
where they
"Bah!"
have to muddle through it in real time with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it with Anna, but I think she'd hate it. So I
Really?
don't think it's gonna happen. Yeah,
Oh.
she doesn't like dark, depressing films.
Did she
So
watch The Substance? With you?
no,
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
she
Must
would
have
have
been you
hated
I was
that
thinking
too.
about.
Yeah, Bradley watched The Substance with me. He wasn't planning to, and then he couldn't
I
walk
remember
away.
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't have anybody. No, I'm probably gonna make my sister, Natasha, watch this. I think that she would love this movie.
Right on.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is Enemy from 2013 by Denis Villeneuve. One of my favorite directors. I don't think I've seen a film of his that I didn't like. Prisoners is fantastic. Blade Runner 2049 is very good. Obviously, Dune is fantastic. Sicario I liked a lot.
I need to watch that
Oh,
one.
that's on my list of
Yeah.
movies I need to watch. Yeah.
The first one's really good. The second one is fine, but like the first one is really, really good.
I did not know there were two. I thought there was only one. So
Me
I don't
neither.
think he directed. I don't think he directed the second one actually. So
He's not
Oh,
big on
okay.
sequels, I've heard, which is weird because he did, two Dunes.
yeah, I don't know
think
about
that's
that.
what I heard that was a big deal that he was doing that in the first place, and then also
yeah, but how do you
Uh,
adapt Dune as
Blade
one
Runner.
book into one movie? Like
exactly.
it's not really a sequel. It's not a sequel. It's a part two. Like
That's true.
Some would say
he's
that it
gonna-
still can't be done.
right?
yeah.
And then he also did Blade Runner, which he didn't do the first one, so it's not like he, did a sequel to one of his own works. Anywho, I don't even know if that's true that he doesn't like doing sequels.
Aaron's just making stuff up.
I like to do that sometimes. Stir the
But
pot.
to me, he's a director that has a very clear like passion for like everything that he like is involved in. He cares about it a lot. The only one that I thought was just okay, just looking at his filmography, is Arrival. I didn't
That's
love Arrival.
yeah, the alien one.
I need to
It
watch
wasn't
it
bad,
again.
but
I think I liked it, but I was pretty young.
it's a different take on an alien film, which I
Yeah.
appreciated. Yeah.
You definitely need to watch maybe all of his stuff. Bits and pieces.